Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of A Human Experience. I have received such great feedback from a lot of you. Some of you who are my friends, some of you who have followed me for years, some of you who are brand new to who I am and what I do through Instagram or through the podcast itself. And I just want to tell you lots of love and appreciation for your presence and for your time with me, for your time and your presence tuning into what is showing up for you. Because it's important for you to know who the hell I am. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And it's going to be, as always, a point of reflection, not just what are you hearing about who this person is who's hosting this podcast, but also what is it bringing up for you? What are the things that are coming up for you about who you are? Or what are the things that are coming up about who you think I am based on what I'm telling you? Because a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is make judgments very quickly about circumstances, about people, about ourselves. And a lot of what we will practice through this podcast is tuning in to all of those different things that happen. Now, you might hear that and go, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. And the truth is, it doesn't take a lot of work, but it takes some practice and it takes a little bit of commitment to being present to what is showing up for you. And there are going to be so many different tools that I'm going to bring into this podcast for you to learn and to practice. And again, part of the whole having short episodes is for you to take small bits of information, digest it, integrate it, see what works for you, but importantly, also figure out what doesn't work for you. One of the things that I absolutely abhor from so many influencers and so much expertise in the media is that we end up falling prey to, oh, this person knows best about this, or this person's way is the right way, or this person is the person I'm going to follow because what they say makes sense. It is very important for me to help you to be aware of those trends, to be aware of what your habits are, where your mental habits are, where your emotional habits are, so that you can be a lot more self-aware. When we become more self-aware, we become a lot more present to what serves us as well as what doesn't serve us. For you to get a sense of who I am, I'm going to pretend like I just met you and we're at a party and I get to introduce myself and we're just going to go with that and see what happens. So, hi, yes, I'm Dr. Margie Serrato. I am a cultural anthropologist by trade. I am also a personal development coach, a leadership coach, and I'm also a speaker. I just started a podcast, as a matter of fact, on all of these different topics of self-awareness and cultural conditioning, and also a little bit about what my current spiritual journey is like and what that means for me, but also how that is meaningful to those around me and to humanity as a whole. As far as my identity, I was the first one in my family to be born in the United States. I am a first-generation American. My family is from Colombia, and I have a very mixed heritage, ancestry. If you look at my DNA, it's such a variety from Basque country, Spaniard, to lots of different countries in Africa, because there is Afro-descendancy in my family, but I am mostly indigenous, South American, indigenous, Colombian. And that's a part of my life that I don't know anything about. That's a part of my life that I don't even have the keys or the people to ask for more information so that I can learn about that part of myself and my heritage, my ancestry. And it's something that I feel like I'm searching for right now in different ways by tuning into myself and seeing what is showing up for me. I've been married for almost 14 years to my second husband. And I am also a mother of two. I have an almost 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. I am the oldest of four siblings in my family, and I'm the oldest in my generation. If I tell you about my personality traits, I am naturally a leader. I hate leadership voids. I spend a lot of my time trying to stay in the shadows and trying to be hidden, except that I was always inadvertently in positions where I was the center of attention, which wasn't uncomfortable for me because that's naturally where I tend to be, anyways. But it was uncomfortable from the standpoint of how I was conditioned throughout my life to be quiet, to not be at the center of attention, to not think that I'm better than others. So there's a lot of shame and shaminess around being a leader and being in the front and being the one who volunteered to answer questions or volunteered to help, the one who would naturally be inclined to help others. So I spent a lot of way too long in my life trying to step back from where I naturally gravitated. And honestly, if I reflect on that now as part of my spiritual journey, it's been letting go of that, letting go of the resistance to what naturally feels good for me because of all of the conditioning. Part of what I learned so much in the past, several years, 5, 6 years, was being in tune with, well, what is my body telling me? What are the signals that my body is telling me about what is good or not for me? I love coaching because it helps me to help myself. I am very happy to do the self-help things, to find the resources for me to give myself what I need. And I just always gravitated towards personal development in ways that I didn't truly understand until the past few years. But it's been a very important tool for me in my own healing. And it's been a very important tool for me to understand, oh, wait, there are some ways in which I have always done this. I've always used this tool. I just didn't realize that it was a tool. Or, oh, I'm naturally inclined in these different ways, or these are my gifts, but not understanding maybe how to put them together in a way that worked best for others. Instead of giving others advice, for example, what we do in coaching is just helping people to tune into themselves, to tune into their magic, to tune into what actually is right for them. Because what we end up doing so much in our entire lives is outsourcing and crowdsourcing what we're supposed to do with our lives. Outsourcing and crowdsourcing our validation, outsourcing and crowdsourcing expertise for ourselves, in ourselves. We're always asking others, what do you think? Do you think this is right? We end up outsourcing and crowdsourcing how we live our lives. When I started college, I started as an undergrad. The first semester was as a pre-med. And it was very soon into my first semester of college as a community college student that I realized, why am I a pre-med? And I realized I'm doing this for my mom because my mom always said that she wanted a doctor in the family. It was one of the first times that I really was in tune with myself and had the opportunity to reflect on, oh, this isn't for me. And once I arrived at that question, I thought, okay, this is not for me. I love my mother. I would love to give her the pleasure of having a doctor in the family through me. However, this is definitely not my path. And this is going to be the rest of my life. So what do I want to do? And as I was thinking about, well, what matters to me? What are the questions that I want to answer in my life? I realized that it was all around, why is it so hard to be myself? Or really differently, why is it so hard for people to accept all of the things that feel right to me? Why is it so hard for me, for example, to be allowed to play soccer when I'm so good at it? I was better than all the boys that I played with. Because soccer isn't really for girls. And once I started being better than the boys, that was definitely not culturally allowed. Why couldn't I join the military? Well, because women don't belong in the military, quote unquote. That's what I heard from my family. So I realized that there was this pattern where it was very much gender based. It was based on what my family believed was the right behaviors or right careers or right way of life for women. So it's based on gender values. One of those things that in my own personal experience was really important was a little heaviness. Okay, so bear with me. My childhood was marred by a lot of domestic violence. And unfortunately, one of those earliest stories of my life is the first time that my mother was ever physically abused by my biological father was when they found out that she was pregnant with me. My mother is a saint. I owe her my life, and I don't mean that just because she gave birth to me. I mean that because her tenacity, her sheer willingness to protect me above anything at all costs was what shifted her life so much. And also, it was what always propelled her to do her best. And that really matters to me. And I'm very grateful for that. And I can't stop to think for too long about how hard that experience must have been for her to feel like she was stuck in this relationship, in this marriage, in this position. But she escaped more than once, trying to get away from this person. So for me as a kid, we always moved from place to place to place every year, every other year. It was very often, which was incredibly hard for me as a kid. Part of what made it hard is not only was I the new kid in town, the new kid in school, I was a loner for pretty much all my life. I was also always very smart and like very in tune with wanting to learn. So my education was very important. I was a little bit of a nerd, which always makes kids call you, teacher's pet, and they don't want to be around you because they think you're going to tell on them when they're doing what they're not supposed to. Sometimes we just had to pick up and go for our safety. And so I didn't have the luxury, the opportunity to have a lot of material things. I don't have like the stuffed toys that I've had ever since I was born. That was long gone. And it was really hard for me when I was a kid. But the thing that it gave me as an adult when I started reflecting on a lot of that hardship was, this is why I can go to any place in the world and find my way around, navigate a completely new place, find my way around very easily, very quickly. This is why it is very easy for me to also go to places and build relationships with people. This is also why I am not attached to material things. And that's something that's really hard for people. Our attachment to material things, and there are many reasons why that can be, as well as our attachment to the familiar, to the comfortable, which can be detrimental. It makes sense as to why I don't have any of that. Life prepared me not just with inner resources, but also with the opportunities for learning that I needed to be even more adept and also to be able to teach others how to let go. So I know I just threw a lot at you, and that was a short introduction. Here are the things that I want you to reflect on. From the little bit that you just heard, who am I? What are the assumptions that you're making about who I am, who you thought I was, and who I really am, based on what you just heard? What are the things that in this story that I just told about myself, about who I am, where do you feel like I might be trapped? Because sometimes we get trapped in our stories. The things that we tell about ourselves are stories about ourselves. And sometimes we get a little fixated on things that maybe are not the best for us. So it's kind of using myself as a mirror. Identity. What are the labels that we use to describe ourselves? And what if you no longer could identify as that? Or what if you no longer chose to identify as that? Who would you be? Things to reflect on that we're going to be digging more and more and more into as we go in this podcast together. But really, it's as much for you to learn a little bit about me, a little bit more about me, which you will in every single episode, because this is very much personally based, but with the opportunity for reflection for you. There is too much for me to share about who I am and my life experiences in a short episode. But the more that you tune in, the more that you get to learn about this particular being, this particular human experience of mine, but also to extend what you're learning and what you're hearing to yourself, but also how you understand others that you encounter, either people who are already in your life or people who you will encounter in the future. I've given you a lot to reflect on, a lot of inquiry. I am so looking forward to your comments, to your feedback about what you got out of this. What is coming up for you? What are the things that you are reflecting on as a result of this episode? Share with me. Follow me on Instagram. Follow the podcast on Instagram. Share with other people if anything resonated. Let's keep the conversation going through social media or in the comments. And I look forward to seeing you the next time.